Welcome to Thursday night at the museum, folks, and you're probably saying, what did Carleton do to his voice? Well, we are using the Rotary Club podium sound system. We got it in, it works great. We have a remote mic now, so if you want to come in and talk Thursday night at the museum, we try to do a little bit of some kind of a quick little presentation, and tonight we're going to talk about scales. I had billed it as our resident scale expert, Larry Violette, coming. Larry is a little older guy, so I don't know if something came up with him. I haven't heard from him. I hope he's okay. He is an incredibly great resource for us. He has donated some of the wonderful scales we have, but his knowledge of those scales is incredible. He has over 500 photos he's taken of his work and some of the scales he's worked with, and we're trying to get him comfortable to come in and maybe talk about a lot of different things with us. So this is going to be like maiden voyage. So hopefully he's okay, and we'll get him in the future. So I'm going to fill in. I am not the resident scale expert, but I do have a great system here at the museum of cataloging. We call it Past Perfect, and it gives me information about different things. So I was able to do a little research today. You gotta have that ace in the hole just in case. So I'm going to get my notes. The photos you see up here in front are actually photos that Larry gave us. The first one is picking cotton, and the scale. It's a scale that they use to weigh the cotton, so it's kind of a really unique one. And then the next one, I think, is a general store. And there's a multitude of different scales in the general store. And we have some of those over here in our collection. And I'm going to go over there and show you what I can and tell you a little bit about them. Larry Violette gave us, I think, over five scales and lots of pieces and incredible amounts of information about it. He is a member of the International Society of Antique Scales, and so he's given us that resource. They have a wonderful website. If you're into scales or you see something, go to the website. Chances are they're going to show you a picture of it and how it works, and it's a really great resource. I use it whenever I need to. And then we have a scale that was given to us by the Larsons, Dan and Betty Larson, over there in the case. We've got another one that was given to us by Bob Lepper. Robert Lepper gave us one, and it is a Toledo fan scale. It's over there. I'll get close to that and give you a little bit of history on that. And I think we had another one here from Bob. We had a couple from Bob. And I think that's it for now. And so today is just meant to tease you a little bit. We have probably 35 scales in our collection. And if you come into the museum, you don't even have to come into the museum. If you walk by the front window, you'll see behind the old deep draw rack and pinion press, that yellow press on the street, the mint scale. It's a Tremor scale. Tremor is still a highly regarded scale company out of Philadelphia, I believe. And that was built in 1940. It was used to weigh gold bullion and silver bullion. And it has a beautiful hardwood top and glass that sits over it, and then it has glass pieces that fit over the where the balancing key is. Unfortunately, time has not been kind to them, and they're warped a little, and rather than put them on and have them fall off, we've kept them in the back. And we may try to get them fit on them, but we might just leave it as is. We use it as a basis for our Leach and Garner collection because it was a gift from the Leach family, Ted Leach and Debbie Leach and his dad, Ted in Virginia. They gave us the big press that's out on the street way back in 1987, and Ted gave it to us not too long ago. So it was a 2-hour job that turned into 6. But as the men who moved the scale said, once it gets here, it isn't moving again, because it was very heavy. And it was a day like yesterday or the day before where the humidity was terrible, and these poor guys with just a hand truck moved it off the truck in through the front doors, and the hand truck was good. It worked, you know, it was a one rated for a couple, probably 10,000 pounds. They moved it right up, they winched it up and down. It was just amazing. An exercise in physics and levers. So that's our biggest scale, and then the rest of them are all through the museum. There's some in the back table over there, and then some jeweler's scales here. So I'm going to make a segue over here and show you just a couple of the different scales we have. If you're interested in the International Society of Antique Scales, there's some information. Just Google it, it's great. These photos are outstanding. We have that scale right there. But basically, if you look at that bar scale or hook scale down there, you got it right there. And it's, you know, a couple of cross pieces and beams and somebody's weight, I guess, beforehand. So, and then this is definitely your everyday general store. You know, the cash register we have there, 1913, 14, this might have been a little bit before that. But you can see a few scales in the background that were used to weigh out different pieces. And we have some of those scales right here. And the first one is called the Fairbanks scale. Larry Violet gave us this scale, and he said that it is for counting pieces. So when you went into a general store, they wanted to know how many pieces were in a certain weight. So you would put the weight here, and then you'd put the pieces here, and when it balanced, you knew there were 50 pieces in a half of a pound. So it was basically a counting scale. This one is given to us in 2002, cast iron. These 50-pound weights here have Fairbanks stamped on them. They were the calibrating weights that they would use on scales a little different than this one, but they would calibrate their Fairbanks scales using those 50-pound weights. And small world, you know, when you open your museum for events, we had a geocaching event. A gentleman came in to me and he said, you know, my dad worked in Chicago, and he worked for Fairbanks scales, and I have 150 pounds worth of calibrating Fairbanks scale weights. Would you like them? And I said, sure. We get a Fairbanks scale right there, maybe not the same one. He said, but these are authentic, and you can see it on either side. He was real happy to find a home for them, and when you bring people in, when they, you know, if you build it, they will come, and that's what happened. So that's how we got our 50-pound weights. So counting scale, Larry gave us these great number 28 nails that fit in, and so you'd put them there, and then you'd put your weights here to balance it out. I know I'm not doing it right. Larry, don't get mad. So that's our Fairbanks counting scale given to us by Larry back in 2022. We've got a great little corner of scales here. These are baby scales from Sturdy Memorial Hospital. And they were what babies were weighed on. The woman who gave these scales to us, I think, was a nurse. I don't have any more information other than that. This one was the one I was weighed on as a child. I was a little larger child. This is for the younger, the smaller ones. I always ask the question, which one do you think I was weighed on? And emphatically, everyone picks that one. But it has a few more. It's got probably 18 pounds. So I was not an 18-pound baby. I was a bit lighter than that, maybe 8 or 9. Definitely not what you would have thought they would have been a little bit cleaned up and probably covered with all sorts of things underneath there. So next to it, we have a postage scale. I think that is one that Larry gave to us, and it's pretty self-explanatory. The weight, the postage would be put on here, and the weight, and then it would be calibrated for whatever postage was at the time. Now this, my friends, this is a pendulum scale. And basically what a pendulum scale does is it was created to weigh things in a grocery store. So pendulum scale, you would put your tray in here that held all the material, and then it would compute the price of the object as well as weigh it. So at one time it would do both. Now what Larry told me was that during its time the unit price changed. So, you know, throw the scale away, right? No, you didn't. What you would do is open up the end and create a new price numbering that was there. So it would be put over the old one and could be still used. Again, I don't have the expertise that Larry has on these, and but it's definitely one of the meat scales. They actually made it more accurate. It was started out as just a general grocery sale. They made it more accurate to do meat because it was one of those things that was more expensive and people wanted to have more accuracy. So a pendulum scale, the serial numbers are on the end. It's weathered pretty well. In this case, most of these cases have some jeweler's scales in them. Your basic pan balance. You got a couple of more gem scales that the jewelers would use. This scale over here, an industrial beam one, is actually was given to us by the Larson family. It's actually a Toledo speed weight 5-pound scale, and it would be used for counting of it to a high accuracy. So I'm thinking that it came from the Leaching or the Larson Tool Company. They used it when they were making pieces to reproduce, stamping out pieces, which is what they did. They did tools and stamps. So that's what that one down there is. It's a Toledo speed weight scale. Goes up to as high as 5 pounds. It's also grams and ounces. So ahead of the time, the metric system did make it to the United States, guys. These two scales here in the wooden boxes are jeweler scales. I don't have a lot of information about them, but they do have some pretty neat weights in their little boxes below. We keep them, they're kind of fragile. The glass is really fragile. So, and then right here we have the explanation, does it as well as I do. This is a Henry Tremor balance scale. Again, if you get a chance, come take a look at it because it has, you want me to take this down? This scale, by the way, came from Pete Peters' fruit stand here in Attleboro, right? Used to be where the arches are, or the railroad arches. As my mother said, who lived to be 96 and lived in Attleboro, most expensive fruit in the city. Not necessarily the best fruit in the city, but most expensive. And she knows because she worked at the shoe store on the other side of the arch. So it was really a funny thing. So the Tremor jeweler scale, wonderful detail, a beautiful piece of marble it's set on. So we just got this in not too long ago. We didn't do too much work to it. It looks really neat. Can you figure out what this scale is, folks? Now, I'm going to tell you, it's got a food-related name. It resembles a piece of confectionery, one that kids like, especially at the dentist's office. And the bank, too, used to have these in a little. This is a lollipop scale, right? John, Chantalon and his sons of New York made scales. He started his company in 1835 and produced a lot of different types of scales. This is a lever scale and with a dial readout. So you would put whatever you want on here and it would read it out. It's got John Wiley's name here, who might have been one of the gentlemen who did it, and it's got New York and John Chantalon and Sons, Chantillion and Sons of New York. This is a less accurate than a beam scale, but more convenient because of the dial. You could read it easier. It was a countertop model, so they might use it to weigh whatever would fit on the top here. I don't think it was meant for gold or silver because it probably wasn't very accurate. Other models would actually be floor models, so they would be floor to ceiling, and they would be, might be used for even weighing folks, human beings. This, way back in the corner here, is a Toledo scale, and this is an early fan scale that Toledo used, and it was used usually at a grocery store. And believe it or not, it's kind of related to the pendulum scale because it would give you a more general weight on different objects and things. It's got kind of the balance here, so over and under. It's used 99-to-1 ratio with the scoops here. It would have an unknown quantity in one and would take enough pieces in the other to balance it out, so it would be 99-to-1 to bring the indicator to 0. So you would want to balance the most out. One would be at 0 and the other would be 99. And if you put enough pieces in the left one, you could bring it to 0. It had different ratios, 10-to-1, 100-to-1. For example, a lot of, there would be a lot maybe that they were trying to buy a group of 350, and they would put 3 pieces in the 100-to-1 cup and 5 in the 10-to-1, and then see, you know, they would scoop out that number of pieces. This also was used for a gross, which was 144, and they used that, I guess, in the jewelry industry too, quite a bit. So this was an early Toledo fan scale. And again, this was a Larry Violet scale. He donated it to the museum and could tell you a whole lot more than I can. But this wasn't that accurate, so it led to the pendulum scale. In order to make a more accurate weighing of meats and things like that, it evolved into the pendulum scale. And there are scales at the front of the museum and the ones right here. And we're always getting people who say, hey, would you like we have a scale from, the lepers had scales from the jewelry company that they had. So we are not taking everything that comes our way because we have a limited amount of space, but if you know of folks and you're looking for a good, something to have a good home, then I think this is a great place. And then we had our little old produce scale here. It kind of fits up here. And this is a Detecto. I think that's what my first home scale was that you would, my mom would weigh us on. From Pete Peters' fruit stand right here in Attleboro, just on the eastern side of the railroad arch. And as my mother said in her infinite wisdom, the most expensive fruit in town. Not the best, but the most location. And you're absolutely right. You couldn't go, you could go to Morin's and get a nice hamburger or a great, BLT, but you couldn't get a banana.
How many people walk by and just pick up something?
Yep. Boom, very good. So, okay, Thursday night at the museum, we're just starting up again. We took one week off in July to have some work done outside and inside, so we're back. And we will we're looking to have some new people come in and talk in September. Got a couple of people who haven't quite finalized yet, and definitely want to get Larry to come back and maybe do a little longer time, hopefully if he's feeling okay. So thanks for coming.
You did a great job.
Yeah, I did my best. Thank you. Woo!